Hey, let me turn that down. Make sure everybody's up. Look who we have here today. I've got so many people, I'm not even sure their names. Let me see. Brad is over. Brad's over here. There he is. Mr. Brad Olsen from Off the Tracks, the director and producer and everything from Off the Tracks. And down in the bottom left, in this layout, I have 4 different layouts, so it might change. Right now, Cirina Catania. Look at her. Look how good she looks. And then down below, we have Philip Hodgetts and his new hairstyle that got a lot of compliments in Italy, right? Is that what you told us?
Yeah, that was from the people we traveled with.
Oh, okay. And then right below me, if I can twist my hand enough and move it over this way, Tangier Clarke. Brad's over there helping me. So the bottom 3 of you from California, right? You're all in California?
Yeah.
And then Brad's in Utah. I'm on the East Coast. Me and Sam Messman is on the East Coast now. He's in Philadelphia. And Jeffrey Orthwine is also in Philadelphia. I've talked to both of them.
Nice.
So 11 years ago today, we got a pre-announcement back at the Super Meet in 2011 that it was coming out. It was going to be $2.99, but we didn't know when it was going to hit. Well, Philip might have known. I don't know. Nobody else did. Did you know Philip was coming?
Only 1 week ahead. Only 1 week ahead of time. They gave me a 1 week briefing in my then role as influencer.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Back when I pretended to have a radio show and people thought I'd had some influence on people, so they did nice things like give you a preview of stuff.
Right.
But that also did give me the opportunity to write my little first book at Final Cut, which was published 5 minutes after Final Cut was released. So that was kind of a fun little coup.
PDF, right?
PDF, and then 4 or 5 days later, I had printed copies. But the PDF was available 5 minutes after Final Cut.
Yeah.
The understanding the metadata foundations of Final Cut.
Oh, yeah. I got that. I got all your PDFs. I still have them.
Thank you.
I have your, what was that DVD you had out at the very beginning of Final Cut? I think it was Final Cut 7.
The DV Companion we actually had with
DV Companion. DV Companion, yeah, that was it. I have that too. It's right over there on my shelf.
There's a drawer of memorabilia over there that I refer to occasionally.
There you go. There you go. So, Brad, what's up with you in Utah?
Not a lot. There's been a lot of wind. I don't know.
There has been?
And then cold, and then heat. Yeah, lots of crazy weather.
We are at 79 degrees here on the East Coast, which is perfect temperature. After I get done this live stream, I'm going to film. They shut down, there's a city up north of here in Westminster, Maryland, and they shut down Main Street for some kind of a skateboarders. They're taking over Main Street, like a mile of Main Street. They're going to come down in dozens and hundreds of them. And I'm going to go down and film some of that live. I hopefully have an internet connection up there. I presume I'm going to. So
that'll be fun.
It will be fun. It will be fun. And we're going to go up there and eat and then park where they're going to end. And I'll walk up Main Street some and capture some of that. What are you up to, Cirina?
Well, I just got back from a 3-day tour with the School of Rock house band. Did Encinitas, West Hollywood, where they performed at the Whiskey A Go-Go, and at the Musicians Institute with professional mixers. And then they went to Anaheim to the House of Blues. And so I just got back, and I'm culling through everything from the trip and leaving tomorrow for Guatemala for a week.
And what are you doing down there? Don't tell me vacation.
No, I wish it were, but actually it'll be nice. I'm going with, I'm covering Water for Life Ministries. I have a huge suitcase full of over 90 water filters that we're all taking water filters in, and they're combining them with the buckets, and we're going to go into the little towns and show people how to use them so they'll have clean water for their family for up to 5 years. But I'll be documenting that. Yeah, that'll be fun.
That doesn't make my skateboarding events sound very exciting. You're doing something fantastic. I mean, it's exciting to me, but giving people clean water is obviously an incredible thing. What about you, Philip? What have you been up to besides your hairstylist?
I just actually did a quick trip to Montreal last Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday to present an opening keynote at the Entertainment and Artificial Intelligence Conference. Well, it's a community that they're creating in Montreal to try and bring the business people and the technologists and the creative people together to understand each other's worlds and hopefully do some great things together. And they invited me up there to just tick the thing off with a few words.
Well,
and that's when I learned. Sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead. Sorry.
I was just going to say that the last minute I realized I was going to have my typical slides to fall back on. So for the first time in 20-year career of giving presentations, I gave presentations without any slides. Everyone actually had to pay attention to me, which was an unusual approach.
Wow. I think the last time you were on, I had you explain the difference between machine learning and artificial intelligence. Can you run that by everybody again? Because I understand one is like a layer of another or something. Is that what it is?
That's very close. Yeah. I mean, well, the artificial intelligence, the idea of having something that has been created as some sort of computer program or as an algorithm derived from a neural network or some sort of artificial life that can do and think like a human is, I hope, still a long way off. But well, because we're not ready for the rights and the legal protections that have to be provided for such a sentient being. That's sort of the big picture. What almost everything, in fact, everything that we have in the artificial intelligence space at the moment is really machine learning. And there are a couple of different approaches to machine learning. They're all pretty much the idea of we have trained a machine some way to do this thing for us. And an example is what they did in Final Cut in the last releases. Like they trained a machine to listen to the difference between how a spoken word sounds and the background noises sound, and recognize that insufficiently that they can, in a far more sophisticated way than just tuning frequencies, separate out the background from the foreground. That's the sort of rubber hitting the road. I mean, other ways that happens is in the Lumberjack system, we do videos. Our little avatars on screen are actually models or avatars from Synthesia.io, where, that has a synthesized, I type in the script that I want or paste in the script that I want, preview the audio to make sure the emphasis is right, because you often have to tweak it a little bit. And then 5 to 15 minutes later, I have a rendered video in high definition with whatever background I may have provided. It's just compared with me having to put up a camera and ultimately, mic myself, find somewhere to shoot it, maybe adjust the lighting. It's a revolution. And runway.ml and runwayml.com. There's another. Instead of having to carefully rotoscope the edges around something, they've taught machines to understand shapes. So you just say, I want this shape, this person, and it picks out everything and removes that person from the background. And so there's a lot of there's a really big new world of speech synthesis. Most people who go to watch Top Gun Maverick will not realize that Val Kilmer's voice is a complete synthesis. He lost his voice to throat cancer. Wow. 100%.
Oh, absolutely.
He lost his voice to throat cancer a couple of years ago, and he 100% has no usable voice at the moment. And they synthesized the voice from, he fortunately has a large body of samples that we can draw on, but you don't need that many samples to actually synthesize a voice anymore.
Wow.
It's a very interesting, it's a very brave new world, and it's going to, in many ways, it's going to shift jobs from one place to another, but it's also going to empower a lot of individual creativity. If I want to, I may have the fantasy of putting an effect behind myself on a little bit of video, but if I've got to spend 3 days rotoscoping that out, I may call on the idea. But if I just go to a website, upload the video and say, here, click, and, it's a matter of minutes later and some machine has done all the work, creative juices will flow a bit freer.
Right. Hey, Brad, have you used that new voice isolation feature in Final Cut? Because I don't know what's going on with that thing, but Philip was just talking about AI, machine learning. It's that voice isolation is completely different than anything else out there, because it's not reducing noise. It's like pulling the vocal out of the mix and bringing it forward. Because I used it with background talking and background music, and it still worked. So it's not just noise. Whatever the heck they did there. Have you used that at all? Had the need to use it?
I haven't tried it with music backgrounds yet, but we had a shoot recently where we had a bunch of presenters, and there was a lot of room noise because of the space we were in, and I was skeptical that voice isolation would work as well as it did. But I have to say, like with many different voices, different types of voices, and different levels of noise and different volumes of speaking, we were blown away with how voice isolation works. You know, you're so used to any noise reduction.
Right.
The more you apply it, the more artificial,
gets robotic, yeah,
heavier, robotic it is. But with this, I have to think that, you know, 15 years or so of iPhone studying and trying to extract voices from calls and things like that, and making that cleaner and cleaner, which, you know, they've shown features with the iPad and iPhone, and isolating voices for consumers. I have to think that there's some of that got ported over. That research helped the Final Cut team implement this feature, because it's pretty magical.
And the amazing thing is, they thought that dupe detection was going to be the big feature. And it's really not. I mean, dupe detection is important, but this voice isolation was a sleeper hit. Everybody is raving about it.
So, Brad, with that, I have a short video I have to cut today, and it was filmed by someone who's using the wrong kind of mic in a very noisy environment. Would it help with that too?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Wow.
Absolutely.
Oh my gosh.
And we would crank it up to like 100 and still like maybe a tiny bit of artifacting.
Yes.
But still very, like, much better and very usable.
It's worth getting Final Cut just for that one feature if you don't have Final Cut. It really is. Tangier, what have you been up to?
Yeah.
Over there in LA?
Yeah. Los Angeles, pretty busy. I just finished. I teach high school students. I'm building a media production pathway at a high school in El Segundo. So, but I'm also been working on film. So, working on a trailer for a film called Cage Birds. It just landed on Amazon Prime about a week and a half ago. We never really had an official trailer, so I've been working on that. And then an independent project that just had its West Coast debut called Jasmine is a Star. It was really cool to see that at the Chinese Theater, where it's West Coast. It was shot in Minnesota.
Right.
So that's where it got into the festival and debuted there. But it couldn't even get to the Q&A because I didn't get to go, but the rest of the team that was there, because of tornado warnings, they all had to evacuate the building. They just barely made it to the film. But we did have a Dances with Film. It made it into Dances with Films here on the West Coast at the Chinese Theater.
Well, congratulations on that. Now, you did edit with Final Cut Pro. If you didn't say you did.
No, it's all Final Cut Pro. It was all Final Cut Pro. Although the color was DaVinci Resolve.
Yeah, that's typical.
Color was DaVinci Resolve. And then I'm working on another film right now about a short film about PTSD. It's someone's personal story. So staying busy. And then part of this week I'll be in Burbank at Warner Brothers for this Arts, Media, and Entertainment conference they're having all week long. So I'm really kind of looking forward to seeing new technologies, what's going on. Especially, I'm really kind of wanting to know more about interactive and more immersive technologies, and trying to figure out what's out there and what tools are out there, and what more I can learn from that, as well as some storytelling things. So
absolutely,
it's happening all week. Yeah, that's what I've been doing.
Now let me show you what I've been doing real quick. Today, anyway, let me see if I can pull this up. This is what I've been doing. Look at this.
Oh, wow.
Gross.
I pulled out wait a minute. This is the best part. I quit this, and I brought up Final Cut Pro 10.
Ooh.
Look at that one, 10.0.
On my old original MacBook Pro.
Wow.
Aww.
Wow.
That's awesome.
Can you hear the fans in the background?
Wow. That's back when we could see previews of our timelines.
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
No,
The
absolutely.
feature would come back, yeah.
had
little
a-
film strip previews of our timeline.
They had a project library. I mean, a project timeline, a project. Yeah, you can watch your projects. And since they got rid of that, we can't even preview our projects without double clicking or single clicking.
Yeah, I have a confession, Richard. When you said, I'm still laughing. That first picture of Final Cut, I call it Final Cut Legacy. That's how I refer to it.
Sure,
Now we have
sure.
X. Because every time I refer to Final Cut now, I'm afraid that if I just say Final Cut, people will think I'm talking about the old one. So I have to put X in parentheses so they know what I'm talking about. Or
Right,
Legacy. But
right.
when you put
No,
that picture,
absolutely.
when you put that picture there, I still, in post-production groups that folks that I communicate with, we still go back and forth. People are talking about Premiere and Avid and Resolve and things like that. And I tell them, I say, particularly with Premiere, just the way it works and how it's quote unquote, what Final Cut 8 would have potentially been. Some people see it that way. That I think about all the time I spent on Final Cut Legacy.
Mm-hmm.
And since Final Cut 10 and further, no longer X, there,
Right.
I tell them I don't even want to go back to Final Cut 7. Now there might be a feature or two that I want, but I look back on it and think, how did I get along working like this? Like it's just, I find myself laughing that as much as I loved Final Cut Legacy, I don't even want to go back to the way that I was doing things in that, except for a couple features.
Yes. Yes.
I actually do prefer. I'm probably a rare few. In a lot of ways, I still prefer the speed ramping in Final Cut 7, the way it worked. But
but even here's something else that I really miss in 7: the ability to drag a project to another project.
Yes.
I used to do that all the time.
Me too.
You could drag a project to another project. So like in Final Cut 11, I mean, I don't know anything about 11. I misspoke. Final Cut 10, you can't drag one project to another, one timeline to another. But speaking of it, exactly what you were talking about, Tangier, when I posted this our chat here, and I said, Final Cut Pro birthday 11, people were saying, no, it's 20 years old. And that's because they dropped the X. I didn't say Final Cut Pro. I didn't say Final Cut Pro X 11th birthday. I said Final Cut Pro because they dropped the X. So people kept saying, no, it's 20 years old. I said, well, that's not. I'm talking about the one that came out in 2011.
Yeah.
23.
It's all kind of not having the X anymore. It just makes it, now when you talk about Final Cut Pro, sometimes it's like, are we talking about Final Cut Legacy, or are we talking about the current Final Cut?
At this point, it's Final. It's now. It's X.
Yeah,
Legacy. Say Legacy otherwise. Yeah.
For example, if we were rewriting X to CC into a more modern language than it currently is, we would not bother with supporting Final Cut Pro 7 at all. It would all be all about supporting Premiere Pro, going both ways. Because, it might still work for Final Cut 7, but we won't be testing it if that was something that we were doing.
Yeah. Well, I had somebody on this year. Was it this year? Yeah, it was this year, and they cut their doc in 7. It was
Really?
It was yeah.
Was
it something they started like 10 years ago?
No, what it was the editor wanted to use 7, so they let him use 7. He wasn't familiar. They did all their pre-production and all their work in 10, and then when he edited it in 7, and they put it back to 10 to spit it out. It's like
an exercise in futility.
Well, it worked. They got it out. Okay. The thing is, people say Apple should make all their editors that do Apple TV programs to do it in 10. Final Cut Pro 10. I don't agree with that. they should hire a producer, editor, let them use whatever tool they want to use. If they want to do Avid, they want to use Premiere, let them use it. You can encourage them, like, here's a new MacBook Pro that's got Final Cut Pro on it if you want to use this, or something like that, but don't make them, you know.
Yeah. Well, you know, they're putting Resolve on their own website, so
well,
you know, their own ads, so it's not a big deal.
And LumaFusion. They, you know, last spring, the spring event, they had like featured 6-7 times. So WWDC came and went, and again, there's no Final Cut Pro on the iPad. So is that going to be the standard? I mean, every year people say, "Oh, Final Cut Pro on the iPad." I'm saying you got LumaFusion. I don't understand.
I agree. I just don't see what's the compelling reason for having Final Cut on an iPad. Final Cut, which is designed for a desktop.
Right.
And you have something that was designed from the ground up for iOS.
Yes.
And, you know, these things are more than just a superficial interface layer on top of each other. And that can happen with simple apps, but not with something that is designed from the ground up. So I can't see where the benefit to Apple is to split and get another branch of Final Cut and to go into an iOS version. But
the only advantage I can see is from a marketing standpoint. Like, it would create some buzz, is all I can see. That not from a user functionality, and it would help anybody, but it would definitely control the news cycle for a couple days.
Yeah.
That seems to be a very expensive way of controlling the news cycle.
Sure.
It's not developing apps that cost money. It's supporting them that costs the money. You develop it once, but you have to support it for years and years and years and years into the future.
That's true. And the thing is that I always say, okay, if the Final Cut Pro comes on the iPad, there's no way it's going to be as powerful as the desktop version. It can't be. And what am I going to do with I have over 1,000 Final Cut Pro plugins. And what am I going to do with my 56 terabyte RAID 5 that I have connected to my MacBook Pro? Those questions haven't been answered. I mean, are you going to have 2 Thunderbolt ports on a future iPad? Look at you. There you go. Philip, I hope they do USB 3 on the new iPhones. I mean,
I think so. Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I actually have a brand new iPhone because I foolishly left my phone in Uber as I was being dropped off at Montreal Airport, which had my boarding pass, my in-flight entertainment, and the means of contacting Red when I actually get back to LAX. It's like, oh, okay, this is an interesting moment.
Yeah,
so it worked out. I got back.
I do. When I go traveling, I always do the digital version of all the passports, and I always print everything out. I have 2 printout copies of my boarding pass, one on my pocket, one in my suitcase, just in case the internet goes down or whatever the heck going on. Oh, my iPhone's blank. How do I fix that? I don't know. I was on there. I did have a boarding pass. So
Exactly.
Agreed.
That's what I do. Yeah, that's what I do.
Cirina, have you got all your shots and everything for tomorrow, for your trip for tomorrow?
Yeah, I'm all ready. The only thing I have to do is fill out the border crossing form and get the boarding pass. We're actually leaving. We're driving into San Diego and then walking across through that tunnel. I've never done it, into Tijuana and flying out of Tijuana. So
I see.
Interesting.
So why did you do that? Just more convenient?
It's more convenient and the flights are less money. So we'll see how convenient Aeromexico is. We fly through Mexico City to Guatemala City. So we'll see how it goes. But yeah, I've got my COVID test. Hopefully the results will come in today and everything will be fine. And
post them when they come in, post them on this live stream so everybody knows. It's very important. Look, you went to NAB, I went to NAB, 52,000 people. I didn't even have a sniffle when I came back, and I think I shook hands with half of those people. Right?
Yeah, I didn't have any problems either.
I think 25,000 some people I was shaking hands. Now, I always wash my hands, I mean, let me tell you. But there was a lot of people going on there, so. What I meant was, don't they have, when your international flights, didn't they used to have shots you had to get besides the COVID stuff? Weren't there other shots that you were recommended getting?
Yeah. Yeah, well, when I went to the Amazon, I had to have a whole list of shots.
That's what I was referring to. Yeah.
Yeah. I grew up in the military, so I have every weird shot possible. Yellow fever, dengue fever, diphtheria, tetanus, typhoid, the COVID shots, everything. So, but
So
going to Guatemala, that didn't need special shots. Just, and the nice thing about Guatemala is the current is 120. So electricity is 120. The plugs still work.
Oh,
so
they
I don't
do.
have to take.
Okay,
No,
well, that's nice. Yeah.
And Philip, we go through
converter.
this all the time. We're always carrying these travel converters with us. Don't have to worry about any of that. I was going to say earlier, though, about the LumaFusion Final Cut thing. LumaFusion really communicates very well with Final Cut. So
Yes.
you can start on your iPad, you can work on your iPad, and then you can go home to the edit bay and you can just finish it up there. So that's kind of nice.
So one of the things that I found peculiar about WWDC, now tell me if I got this wrong, but didn't Apple say that their video cameras on their MacBooks aren't that good? Because they want you to have this little they had this little device to use your iPhone that plugs on top of the MacBook Pro. Isn't that aren't they saying it's not that good? I mean,
I think the clip was a third-party thing.
I know, but it's at a WWDC
for a long time.
WWDC event. They're showing somebody's third party that hadn't even been out yet here, use your iPhone on this and put it on top of your MacBook Pro. I thought that was just a little bit, it was funny that they did that. I mean.
Well, they were also introducing the feature where you can use your iPhone as that kind of stepping into Camo's territory. I mean, as we say around here, they got Sherlock because the Sherlock search app feature was the first one that Apple sort of kind of stepped on their toes. So we can get Sherlock since then. But so I guess that was just a continuation of that. And I don't think anyone ever argues that the user-facing camera on a phone or on the laptops are anywhere near as good as the actual forward-facing cameras on a phone.
Right.
You've got choices and remote control of that camera. Certainly, you can control the zoom and everything.
Yeah.
So it's like it just opens flexibility. I don't think it's sort of an admission that it's crap. It's just an admission that we have a tool available, and why not make it easy to use?
No, I didn't say crap. I said not as good. I was careful. I actually did.
I was like
before I went to NAB, I actually did a side-by-side comparison. I had the iPhone right above the MacBook Pro camera and then the MacBook Pro camera, and I did a live stream comparing the two. And the 1080p camera is definitely better than the 720p camera that's been on it for years and years and years. But it's definitely softer. The iPhone camera, there is very distinctive quality difference between the two. Although when I was at NAB, I used my MacBook Pro. It was fine. I mean, it's fine. It's just not as good as the iPhone camera. Of course, that one tour that they had in the Apple years ago, and they said they had 700 people working on the iPhone camera. 700 people. Now, that's different things, software, lenses, sensors, whatever. But the one thing I wish they would do is but add audio meters and audio controls to the native camera app on the iPhone, because I use that camera app all the time simply because you can switch the 3 lenses while you're filming without stopping. It's one of the few apps that can do that. You can go from any of the 3 forward-facing lenses without stopping your recording. I wish Filmic Pro would get that, but you have to stop the recording, change the lens, and then start a new recording. So I don't like that. So, but they have no audio meters. They have no audio controls in the native camera app, and we know that audio is at least 50% of good video. So I don't understand that. It can't be that hard.
Yeah, that would be useful.
Sure. Speaking of WWDC, I think my favorite announcement from that event was the reference modes that we have on a MacBook Pro, 14-inch and 16-inch, and the Pro Display XDR reference modes are coming to the iPad. So now, like, you can take an iPad Pro and use it as an HDR grading monitor. I think that's really going to be helpful.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So
also for people who may be professionally grading, but have to send stuff remotely to their clients, they can say, hey, go into the settings, switch to this mode before you watch my video, so that we're looking at the same thing.
But do you still have to calibrate if you use an HDR on the iPad? You don't have to calibrate it?
I mean, it will lock it into, I'm sure that there'll be some calibration to help with the color balance, but it locks it into certain brightness and certain color spaces. So if you're in Rec 709, it'll lock it to 100 nits, and it'll lock it to those color primaries and that gamma. And then when you switch over to HDR, it'll lock it at 1,000 nits, and same thing. So you can play with this if you've got the new M1 Max MacBook Pro. You can check out the different reference modes and see how it looks already. But the fact that I could then take an iPad next to my MacBook Pro and even take that on the road or something as a way to color grade from a hotel room. Just black out the windows, I guess.
No, of course. So at WWDC, they showed us the new M2 MacBook Air, and what are they doing? They have a 13-inch MacBook Pro and a 14-inch MacBook Pro. Does that make any sense? I mean, one's an M1 Max or one's an M2, but there's 13 and a 14. That seems a little bizarre to me for product marketing. 13, 14, 13, 14, well, M1, M2.
You can sell more cases.
Who buys an Apple case? I didn't buy an Apple case.
No, I'm talking about like the covers.
Covers, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. You know what I would love to see them do? Philip, did you shoot on an iPhone when you were traveling? Or did you take your cameras? You shot a lot on your iPhone?
I only took an iPhone. It was the 12 at the time, and I made a deliberate decision to forego the RX10, my sort of bigger travel formal camera.
Right.
And I'm so glad I did, because it was just, there's a lot of things in Italy are small elevators, small staircases, small places, and just not having that extra bit of weight, not carrying that through the streets. A lot of walking I didn't have to carry. It's always true. The best camera is the one that you have in your pocket.
Yes.
Always with you. So
absolutely.
And it was there were probably half a dozen shots where I'd really like to zoom in tighter, and I had to forego those. But if I'm balancing out 5 shots that weren't going to change the world, versus the fact that I could have my camera with me all the time and do some amazingly stabilized video. And on Capri, we were out on the water and went through those rocks, the big iconic 3, I should know you remember the name, but we actually went through it on the boat. But you can see the video is rock steady, but the boat is going like crazy underneath me because it's been stabilized in the camera. And I didn't realize just how good that had become until I was in a situation where it was like, oh, this transparently made my video much, much better than I was expecting it to be because of their built-in stabilization. I watched it back and thought, well, I thought I was fairly good at keeping steady, but I wasn't that good. Sometimes I just don't even believe my own hype.
Right, exactly. So
I'm just curious. Oh,
go ahead,
sorry,
Cirina.
go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
You know me, I'm always curious. I'm just curious, workflow-wise, how are you managing your media from the iPhone into Final Cut? Are you bringing it into a hard drive first, renaming it, and then importing it? Or are you importing it directly into Final Cut? See, I have a problem, and I'll tell you right now, I'm a little prejudiced. I have a real problem with the naming conventions on the iPhone. The stuff that comes back doesn't make any sense at all. It's just a string of numbers. And like in Sicily, I came back with 14,000 images. How do you manage all of that? I found myself actually shooting more on the Sony A7 series with the Batis lens for the dark concert footage. And I did use the iPhone for some of it, but I did that only because it's just easier to manage the media. So the pros and cons, right? On Guatemala, I probably will do a lot of shooting on the iPhone again, but then when I come back, how am I going to manage all of that?
I do not like the naming convention of Final Cut Pro. I just really don't like it. So that's why I import media separately into a separate folder, organize it in folders, rename files the way I want, then create a Final Cut Pro library. then I can
Same
search
here.
for the stuff in the Finder because the names just, and they separated
Sorry,
into
Richard, what do
folders
you mean?
by.
You mean the not Final Cut Pro names, just like the IMG and the number string? You don't like that from the iPhone?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, just
Right,
yeah,
because
but I
Final
mean,
Cut's not naming anything.
No, I think he
no.
meant the iPhone.
Yeah, they were talking about
Yeah.
different things. I think Cirina was talking about the naming that the iPhone, like you're talking about Brad, the
Right.
IMG, and I think that
Right.
Richard was talking about, Final Cut's own software GUI kind of, naming things. I agree with Richard. For years now, many years, I always rename using my own, unique nomenclature for my files so that everything's always unique and I know exactly what reel or
Right.
what SD card, like it's all built in. I rename everything before it ever gets to Final Cut.
Right.
That's been one thing that I
Yeah.
don't like about Final Cut, that I do like about Final Cut 7, and I'm sure there's some security reasons and symlinks and all those kind of things going on. But one thing I do miss is at least the option of renaming files in Final Cut and having it being renamed in the Finder.
That has some serious disadvantages.
It's not often that I need
tracking media back through workflows. Certainly
Yeah.
there was, do not to make those changes unless you know exactly what you're going to do. And
Yeah.
we often
Yeah.
found that people do not know exactly what they're going to do, and it's like, I can't relink to my original media anymore. No,
Yeah.
you can't.
I think
Sorry about that.
I do think ultimately it is the better decision, the way it's built, and I'm more kind of the person who tinkers and goes inside the package and all that kind of stuff. So, it's just one of those things. It's like, gosh, I wish I could at least have the option. Don't just don't take it away. Can I still? But generally, it's rare that I have to do that. I usually do my naming outside. I'll use something like Edit Ready.
Right.
And then bring all my files in to Final Cut later.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
But when you rename
Tangier.
in Final Cut, the metadata still lives with the original file, right, Philip? The original metadata doesn't change, does it? When you rename the file, you still have all the original information.
The original file name stays. Well, the original file name stays exactly the same. Nothing that you have in Final Cut goes into the original file unless you use the Finder Cat, because that puts all of the relevant clip metadata into the file that can be recovered later.
Yeah.
So Felipe Baez actually had a clever solution to this, that because I agree that there's a problem with like renaming files, relinking files, and kind of, especially when you get in a shared environment and you're working with multiple people.
Right.
There's a solution that when Final Cut imported footage, if it just attached a hash, which would be a custom name, it's always a custom little code onto a file that identifies how large the file is. But if there was a way to track that inside the library instead of just simply the file name, you could reorganize and rename files all day long and always be pointing back to the same original media. This would be extremely helpful for people who shoot on the Sony A7S and they have the default clip name, which is like clip 001 or something.
Right.
And yes, it's great to be organized up front, but when you have a lot of people shooting or a lot of people bringing stuff in, sometimes they don't, follow all those procedures or name them correctly. And this is a way where you could go back, fix the file names, but then Final Cut would always be smart enough to link to the original files.
Yeah.
I don't know if that made sense, but
No, I understand both sides, but I wish Final Cut would let me click off a couple of warnings, click, and let me do some things, because it's like it's holding your hand. It's like it's just holding your hand.
Yeah.
No, you can't do that. We know better than you do. No, you don't know. You don't know all 300, 400 million editors that use your product. I'm sorry. Some people want to do it.
Right.
So I don't work with Hollywood films and everything's got to link back to the camera originals. I don't do that. So I'd like to get in there and.
Right.
What I'm saying is
it is a very greater good type flow.
Yeah. This is a solution that there's an ID tag associated with every clip. So it would not matter if you renamed it or not.
Gotcha.
There's just always, Final Cut would be tracking a tag on the clip metadata instead of caring what the file name is, which in my opinion is how media management should go anyway.
Yeah, when I rename a file, I keep a little bit of the original. Like I'll keep the last few
I do
digits of
too.
the original number just so that I can
I do
find it if
too.
I need to. But
I
I
do
think
too.
the next challenge for the folks at Apple is to consider the workflow requirements of everyone in the field, because the stuff's working great. It's just the communication between all of the devices and, you know, the day-to-day workflow challenges that we all have to manage huge amounts of media. I think it would be great if some of us got put on a beta panel to try to give them some suggestions about how to make things work better for us. I know
Well,
they're
That's
encouraging us to use the
that's not a
iPhone.
beta panel. That's a consulting panel. That's about 2 years before you get to the beta panel.
yeah.
Okay.
Oh, wow.
That's fine. All right. Well, I volunteer. I volunteer.
Same.
So
one of the things from
Same.
Dub that really caught my attention, because it's something we want to do, is how much emphasis there was on collaboration. It seems like it's all going through messages at the moment, which doesn't help us with Builder, but an added emphasis on collaboration and frameworks for better collaboration is a nice indicator of a corporate direction, if we could use that to infer the way that a specific app may go, but which would be nice to see some sort of actually active collaboration within Final Cut.
right. Well, one of the things that Apple responded to that letter, one of their responses was they are going to start a panel this summer with professionals for input on some of these issues. So the one mistake I don't want the Final Cut Pro team to make, don't just talk to Hollywood professionals, okay?
Yeah.
They're important, but there's millions and millions of non-Hollywood people out there. That's the majority of your audience. Talk to some normal people. Talk to some people who shoot wedding videos. Talk to some people who do independent documentaries. Talk to some other people, event videographers, YouTubers, of course. Don't just concentrate on Hollywood. That's only part of it.
And narrative. There's a strong emphasis on narrative video that isn't necessarily representative of the user base.
Okay.
That's
Yes.
true. That's true too. That's true too. Well, don't you think they're going to do that? I would think they're smart enough to do that.
No. Yes, they're smart, but I don't want them to, the squeaky wheel syndrome where Hollywood's squeaking. Oh, let's go over here. No, use that. One of the criteria for sure, you can pay attention to Hollywood and filmmaking. That's prestigious, but don't forget the normal YouTuber. They're just, YouTubers. Yeah. I mean, they're some of these people have millions and millions of followers.
Yeah.
So one of the,
no iChat theater. We're not bringing that back.
iChat theater.
Or messages theater it would be now.
Well, they talked about collaboration, though. They're like Philip said, everything collaboration. So
when Philip mentioned that, when Philip mentioned collaboration, it made me think of, well, which direction are they going? Are they trying to is there a chance that they'll ever try to revisit that technology again and do something like that? But now we have
better.
Yeah, we have other options. So we'll see.
So one of the things that they said, another thing they said in response to the letter is that they're going to have more visits around the world or whatever to talk to film and television and everything. It seemed like they were actually planning, visits to different cities to meet with different people. That's one of the things. You know what I'm talking about, Brad?
I have to pull up the letter. I don't remember.
No, not the letter. The response.
The
response to the letter.
Sorry, the response letter. Yeah, I have to pull that up.
The thing is, they are doing this all the time. They have people come in and spend 3 weeks as not an internship or whatever, a mentorship. They come in as a working professional, spend 3 weeks in Apple's labs, looking at what they're planning, talking with their designers, playing with what's in development. And then, they go back into their world and they've never mentioned it to anyone because it's all behind NDAs. And I probably shouldn't have mentioned it at all. But it's happening all the time. And Apple travel a lot. Their product managers are around the world in normal times, and they're consulting with people in every location where they go to. It's like they just don't make a big song and dance about it. They don't put it out there in public all the time, but they have been doing that the whole time.
Yeah.
Sometimes.
So
So
the wording is this. Sorry, Philip. Expanding
right.
the content and frequency of Final Cut Pro workshops for major film and television productions.
Right, that's actually doing
Expanding.
some active workshop. Yeah,
Yeah.
workshop, doing more work training, and that's a different angle.
So expanding the workshops. It didn't say starting these workshops. Expanding these. You have to pay attention to Apple in their wording wording with things. They're very clever sometimes. You know, I'll never forget when Steve Jobs held up an iPhone and says, "Who wants to see a video on something like that screen this size?" And then a year or 2 years later, he had the video iPod. I'll never forget that. It's like, don't look over here. Don't look over here. So they said they're expanding. This already exists. Expansion, otherwise it wouldn't be expanding.
Yeah.
Okay.
You know, I have to say, all of you are involved in the High School Media Collective. And for the last couple of years, even before we started that, Apple was very supportive by helping us with equipment, iPhones and laptops and other equipment when we were teaching high schoolers. It's amazing what they do. They don't want to be promoted that way, but they're in the community. They're in all the communities, and they're supporting people like all of us all the time. You know, they'll send packages of 25, 30 kits out to the students, and of course you return them, but it's invaluable when you're teaching these things. So I'm very grateful for that.
No, absolutely. Absolutely. Philip, when they first announced the M1 chip at WWDC 2020, you got one of the first Mac Minis, right? That they had the M1 chip to work on?
Yes. Yeah, Greg got one. And we first had the Apple developer transition kit. And then when we returned that, we used our credit to buy an Apple Mini.
So they gave you
Greg
credit. Yeah. They gave you credit back. So for the last 2 years, they've had an Apple Mac event. 2 years ago, they introduced the M1. Last year, they introduced the M1 Pro and the M1 Max. Both of those events, they had the new version of Final Cut Pro 10 and 10.5. Final Cut Pro 10.5 in 2020 and Final Cut Pro 10.6 in 2021. So does it make sense? 2022, the M2 Mac Pro and 10.7?
I don't know. They did say that they have only one more Mac to convert to complete the transition, and it's the Mac Pro. They made it very clear that there is not the Studio is not a substitute for the Mac Pro. So.
That's correct, and they also this fall will be the end of the 2-year transition from Intel to Apple Silicon if it's on time.
Yeah.
The one interesting thing about that is, because I went back and researched this, every single time they were going to release a new powerful tower, every single time that year WWDC they previewed it, starting with the G5. The G5, the original cheese grater, they introduced at WWDC. The cylinder Mac Pro, they introduced at WWDC. The 2019 Mac Pro, they introduced at WWDC. All of them came out later that year. This year, they didn't do that. So I'm just curious why the other ones did, and this one, they didn't show it. Maybe it'll come out in 2023. That doesn't really affect me. I'm not sure I'm going to buy one.
Are any of you getting tired of chasing new gear?
No,
I feel
no, absolutely not. Look. What are you talking about?
The phone.
You know, I look around here and there are so many computers and it's that race to get the new thing because it might be better. I've got the 2019 Mac Pro here and I love it. I have the M1 iMac. Unfortunately, it doesn't have enough memory in it. Really, I thought the assistant editor might be able to use it, but it really needs more memory. The one thing I would love to be able to do is modify anything that I buy and increase the memory and change some of the major components. That's
the Mac Pro. You can do that with the Mac Pro. Everything's modular.
Yeah, the Mac Pro I can, definitely.
I love this about the Mac Pro. You can replace the power supply as a module.
Yeah.
So if you're on the phone with Apple Care and they determine that it's very likely the power module, they can ship you a new one out. You can unplug it, plug it back in, put it back together, No problem. No problem. So I really like that. I don't know what the Mac Pro, M2 Mac Pro is going to look like.
No.
Is it going to have PCIe slots?
Well, hopefully, if they can go with
You would
the
think it
well,
would,
Mac
right?
Pro form factor.
I would hope so.
Wait, back up, Richard. And it's just something that I missed. Is it confirmed that it is going to be an M2?
Yes, I confirm it right here. Not Apple. No, Apple didn't say it.
Where's your red phone, Phil? Richard? Where's your red phone? Give him a call.
No, Tangier, it really wouldn't make any sense to do technology that's a year old at this point or 2 years old, depending how you look at it. So the Mac Studio is the M1 Ultra. Right. So I think they started that new cycle. They introduced the first introductory M2s at WWDC. It just makes sense that the Mac Pro is going to be an M2 something or other, whatever they're going to do. I can't see them using an M1 at that point. It wouldn't make any sense.
Maybe there may be something we don't know about the M2 that might scale up to a Mac Pro that's better. You know, the M1, they had like the little fusion link or whatever they called it between the processors.
Right, exactly.
So maybe there's like a quad version of that on an M2 or something. I don't know. We'll have to see.
I was reading about a vertical stacking of those of some kind. I don't know how that would work.
Yeah, I saw that. But I think I don't really. I'm not in a hurry to get a new Mac Pro. I don't know if I will. I might wait for the M2 MacBook Pro because I really like this MacBook Pro a lot. And just trade this one in on that transaction, trade it in with Apple rather than worry about it, selling. I don't sell anything on eBay anymore. I don't know if you guys do, but they charge 10% commission now. Plus all the hassle. If the person that gets it said, oh, this is broken, I'm not paying for this. You got a big situation going. I sell locally on Facebook Marketplace. People have to come to my place, pick it up, test it out, give me cash, and then we're good to go. Yeah. But trading it with Apple is pretty good too. You can trade this MacBook on the new one.
I don't know if any of you have actually had a chance to kind of test out just how good like the Mac Studio is, because we're talking about potential Mac Pro, what's coming, but with using 8K. And I say that because recently I had a meeting with someone who's doing a feature film that we were talking about maybe if I can get on board with this later on. And it kind of, I wasn't quite prepared for, hey, we're shooting this in 8K. And I'm scratching my head like, how are you showing this? And what are we, I'm just trying to process like, what is it that I'm going to need to actually, is it multicam? Is it, what are you shooting with? So I had never until about a month ago ever had anybody approach me saying, we're shooting in 8K, this feature film, and I want to know if you can cut it, kind of thing. So I think for me, it was kind of a wake up call. Like, yes, I know the Apple ads that, you can do however many streams of 8K on this machine and that machine, and it's fine. But in reality, like, can I actually work in the speed and the smoothness and fluidity that I need to? I personally haven't had a chance to test it other than downloading, on the current hardware that I have, going to Red and downloading some, random 8K pre-files and just playing around with them. And even then it's like, I think I'll be working in proxy mode for
No, I like proxy mode, especially for multicam. 4K is enough for me. At this point, I'm fine with 4K. I mean, Brad, you have the 6K camera from
Blackmagic Pocket,
Blackmagic, and I can shoot 5K with my GH5 and 5.7K with the GH6, and I do use that sometimes. If I'm going to be zooming in or whatever, but I don't need 8K. I mean, everything I do is in 4K usually, and I export in 1080p typically, to YouTube. But I understand if I was doing a film, why not? Why not choose the highest resolution you can do?
Yeah. Definitely need new hardware if I'm doing that.
I mean, there's a lot of considerations. I saw someone do an 8K test with the Sony Venice 2 recently, and it was kind of hilarious because they put a super 35 millimeter lens on this full frame camera and then noticed the vignetting edges, and then there's all this chromatic aberration. And I was just thinking, man, there needs to be some education that just having a higher resolution sensor doesn't automatically get you a clear picture, especially if you're not choosing the right lens and the right lighting and the right depth of field. Like, you're not really going to see all that. And personally, I with the Pocket 6K, I had these Sigma Art lenses, and I found they were too sharp. So I bought like just a light kind of Blackmagic, or what do they call them? Not the Pro Mist filters, but like a Black Frost kind of Pro Mist filter, just to knock down some of that detail. And then I got these other lenses from DZO Film, which just are a little bit they're not soft, but they're not as clinically sharp, I would call it, as a Zeiss or a Sigma Art lens.
Right.
So I was knocking it back a bit to just make it feel a little bit more organic. And I was much happier with the way people's faces looked. It still had sharp details in their eyes and everything. It didn't look blurry at all. It didn't look soft or out of focus, but it just felt like a more natural image as opposed to something that felt so screaming of sharpening and digital and unnatural, unnatural
and then
in a way.
Blackmagic has the 12K.
Yeah.
I 6K would be more than enough for me for years. I'm mostly from a 4K. I shoot in 4K. I mean, my phone is 4K. With the iPhone 13 Pro Max, I got the 1 terabyte drive, and they should give us something faster than lightning to get that media off there. I mean, I'm hoping the 14 has USB-C port, which would be, I guess, is that US? I think that's USB 3. Maybe it's Thunderbolt. I don't know. But something faster to get that media, because I use AirDrop. I don't even use the lightning port for getting media files off. I just put my iPhone down, AirDrop the files, go make some coffee, come back. Usually they're done.
Yeah, but then if you do more 200, 300, then it stutters, and then you don't know which ones have been imported and which
200 or 300? What are you talking? Are you talking about video files?
No, I'm talking about a combination of stills and short video files.
Yeah, I would do them in small batches. I would do them in small batches.
Yeah, it's just, but I'm like I said, they really need to think about the workflow.
Yes,
because it's not working the way it is.
Yes.
The other thing, I always laugh when I see a comparison between 1080p and 4K and 8K and 12K, and I'm watching it on a 5K Apple monitor and thinking, okay, I'm not in a theater, so I can't really see what I'm supposed to be seeing because you're limited by what kind of monitor you have, right?
Right, sure.
Well, and with projection in a theater, and you sit back far enough, tell me if you can see the difference between 2K and 4K, because I've never been able to tell.
It's hard.
It's really you would really have to have like a Pro Display XDR 6K, and then you'd have to zoom into 100% on some of these pixels to really see anything. And again, there's all sorts of other factors that are at play, like what's your depth of field, what's your lighting, what's your subject. There's a lot of things that you have to really get that out of it.
I actually miss being in the theater more when we're previewing our work. I really do. I miss the old rock. I remember my first day with the old rock and roll room where you literally sat in a theater and you could start and stop the screening. And, I just miss being in a theater. Did you guys see Mission Impossible?
Not yet. I will. I haven't seen it yet.
There's a new Mission Impossible coming out, right?
I mean,
no, you mean
the new Tom Cruise movie, I meant. Pardon me?
Oh, Top Gun.
Yeah,
Top Gun.
Yeah. Oh, my gosh.
Yeah,
so
it was fantastic. It was great.
And everybody says, "Oh, I'm going to wait. I'm just going to watch it on Netflix." I go, "No, don't do it. You have to go to the theater. You have to see it in the theater."
Yeah, I've seen it twice. It was good.
I was in a theater in Baltimore, the Charles Theater, which is kind of the art house theater that has all the artsy films over the years. And I was watching. I'm a big David Lynch fan, and I forget which David Lynch fan. It's either Mulholland. I think it was Mulholland Drive, or it might have been Lost Highway. I can't remember which one. And they in one of their theaters, they're showing this film, and they started at the wrong aspect ratio.
Oh no!
And I went out. They started. I can tell it was. I think it was squeezed. And I went out there and I said, "I want my money back or restart this film." They said, "What's the problem?" I said, "They started at the wrong aspect ratio. It's. I think it was squeezed."
Oh,
I said, "It's the wrong aspect. I'm not going to watch my debut version of this movie at the wrong aspect ratio." So they stopped it and figured it out and then started. I was so thankful because that was aggravating. I said, "What is going on?"
Richard, I'm missing the theater in Cupertino when we used to go in once a year and we would watch the presentations in that wonderful theater that they have there. It just was, it was great. I hope we can do that again.
One Infinite Loop, you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, the fact that Apple is doing these, they said they're increasing these shows around for producers and all. I'm a little concerned about the summit this year. The other thing is, yes, virtual has been nice. It's been very, very nice for the last 2 years out of necessity, but I miss having coffee and bagels with you guys in person. Yeah. Get up in the morning, go down to the lobby, and there's Philip and there's Cirina, there's Brad, and Steve Martin and dozens of other people right there, So I'd love to see, something back, but I'm not sure that's going to happen. I don't know.
On the other hand, after 10 hours travel to Montreal and 10 hours travel back from Montreal and to give a 20-minute presentation, virtual starts to feel appealing again.
No, I understand. I understand for that, Philip. No, I absolutely understand for that, because I went up to New Jersey one time to teach for future media concepts. It's like, 5 or 6 hour drive for a half-hour thing and then a 5 or 6 hour drive back. Same kind of thing. But I still did it. I mean, they paid well and everything, but it's still, But for that something like that, virtual is good. But I'm talking about the personal aspect of seeing everybody. There's no replacement for that. I'm sorry. The Zoom meetings are all out of necessity for the last couple of years. We understand. But I want to get back in person to these events, as long as it's safe, of course.
I love the summit. I hope they do it again. I really do.
Me too.
But, if Apple wants to come to San Diego, I'm happy to see you.
The problem is, first off, Cupertino is where the Apple team is, right? And that's where Apple headquarters is, and that's where the Spaceship Campus is. And we never got to the Spaceship Campus with the Creative Summit. We were told we would one time, last time in 2019, up to 2 weeks before, then they canceled. And the time before that in 2018, there was talk about us going to the Spaceship Campus, and we never got there. So that's where Apple Central is. So any place else that they have, a summit or whatever, they have one in D.C., great, I'll be there, but you guys aren't going to be there, right? So I'm going to be there, and a couple of people from the East Coast will be there, maybe Sam and stuff, but it's not going to be the whole worldwide group. I mean, we had, Ian Anderson come from Australia and friends from the UK, and all at one place at one time. That's the magic. That's the magic. And Steve Martin owes me a cheeseburger still.
And you can't live with that virtually.
It's a running joke, and we were going to do it at NAB, and I said, we'll wait till the Creative Summit. We'll wait till he goes, okay, that's fine. So I want to cash in on that. That's very important. So I've really 6.2 Apple Final Cut Pro 6.2 came out with the long-awaited feature Dupe Detection, which everybody was, for years. This is one of the features that I think professionals have been requesting for years and years and years. I think professionals more than just the average Joe. And then it came out with voice isolation, which like, I tried this and I said, what is this magic that they've got here? And it wasn't, it's a single slider. It's a checkbox and one little slider. And it's just amazing. I want to see more of that kind of stuff. Number one is nobody was expecting it, so it's a complete surprise. And it was understated, you know. Dupe detection, dupe detection, dupe detection. And then, oh, wait, what's this little checkbox here? Voice isolation? And they still have noise reduction, which is different. The voice isolation is completely different. So
you said something interesting, Richard, about, oh, wait, what's this? And as soon as you said that, it made me think of something that these are one of those little things you mentioned earlier, like, when Apple, if they almost get in the way of themselves, you know how that area in the inspector where it's like, oh, wait, what's this? You notice how you only see, I'm actually having it up now, you'll only see the word show, that you can click something if the mouse is over it.
Yes.
It's little things like, there's sometimes people don't know that they can do something because you only know that there's an option to do something if the mouse is over there, as opposed to just have the word show there all the time.
Visible,
you know
right?
Visible.
No, I know what you're talking about. And
when you said that, it made me think of that.
Along the same lines, I wish I could right-click in place and have a HUD drop down with some features rather than constantly going back to the inspector. Motion has that, right? Motion has a drop-down HUD or a floating HUD, and you can
it does.
So when I'm over the inspector, I got a 34-inch monitor. When I'm all the way on the left-hand side of my screen in the inspector, and I want to change a library property, I click on the library, and then all the way over to the other side of the screen to make changes. I'd like to do it just right-click on the library, and make the changes right there, rather than just back and forth all the time.
And you have that large monitor. I'm working with two monitors, and I want something similar because I find that I wish I could move kind of, you know, the toolbar above the storyline. You know, I just actually reposition it, like you're saying, have a heads up display or something, because if I turn the skimmer off, if the skimmer's on and I accidentally go over something trying to get back to the inspector, it's like, it just gets it's annoying.
You also don't have access to that. You're on a
right, so I've got to go back, reselect it. Yeah, I've got to reselect.
Turn off the skimmer.
Turn skimming off, or just be very careful where I move the mouse.
So this is my screen. This is my screen. This is what I have. This is a 34, so I'm constantly going to this side to change something, or this side, or I'm down the timeline, the left-hand side, I want to change a title, and I got to go all the way back up to the library. Is it the worst thing in the world? Yeah. No, but if I could right-click in place and have at least the basic feature drop-down menu or a floating HUD, either one, I'd like to see that.
Right. Yeah.
That would make things easier.
Yeah. It's a little, customize where my buttons are going to go. And they, like you said, the inspector and having to move the mouse, it's, considering how important Apple finds these things, these are one of those kind of non-Apple things where it's like, why am I having to move my mouse and make sure I have skimming off to make sure I don't accidentally, engage something else? There's just a lot. They tried to make things easy and it inadvertently made things actually more difficult.
What do you mean non-Apple things? Do you mean like this?
Well, yes. I literally was talking about
this is the most non-Apple thing. I mean, is there any possibility this was designed by Johnny Ives? Is there any possibility?
That is the, if you made a T-shirt out of that with like clip art, like people would get it, like something that just annoys you. That just speaks volumes. I'm waiting for the rechargeable Magic Mouse. Just put it on a pad and it recharges. You don't have to connect it. It's just, just like the Apple Watch and the phone.
I just would love it if they would give you a little bit of warning before the battery dies on them.
I get a pop-up.
All of a sudden they're just dead.
I get a pop-up that says you have 3 minutes left. You don't get that pop-up?
No, I don't. I actually went on Amazon searching for wired mouses yesterday. Right. Because it's just,
Use your solution. Learn to use the
trackpad. There you go. But even
exactly.
In a lab,
this is what I use as a backup to my phone. I mean, to my mouse.
In a lab environment, just like you're saying, Cirina, I asked for, like, I know that there's these nice magic mice and the wireless keyboard, and I said, can you just please? I just want USB Mac Alley keyboard that's physically plugged in. I don't have to keep charging everything all the time. I don't have to, and then sometimes when the mouse is, going out of charge, I got to flip it over or have a USB on standby. I just all these kind of workarounds, and then I thought, gosh, it would have been nice, at least in the case of the iMacs, either I'd like a little, like a dock where I can put the mouse and the keyboard together and just charge them together at once, or if the foot of the iPad was like a Qi charging station where I can just set it there and it, just charges like an iPhone. The actual the metal cool. of the, if that were like where I can just set it there and I don't have to worry about the lightning cable, and it's just like, just some simple things like that. But sometimes I just wonder, of course, I don't know, the design and the aesthetic get in the way of the functionality.
Philip, how many studios did you buy? Mac Studios?
0.
0?
0.
Were you tempted at all? Were you tempted?
No. I only upgraded from a 5-year-old iMac to a 14-inch MacBook Pro this year. So it's like, no, I'm not changing to upgrade again.
Yeah.
So I have it in conjunction with a 24-inch LG screen to which all my storage is connected. So I just have the single cable connection to my laptop, and it's the whole extended desktop experience. It works very well for me.
Yeah.
Small computer goes
Philip,
out
as a developer,
in the other room, and then goes over there for singing practice in a little while, and so on. It works. It's a good compromise.
I was gonna say, Philip, as a developer, do you find it more advantageous to be on hardware that isn't the biggest, greatest, whatever? Because if somebody's using one of your apps and they're complaining about something, and you're like, "Oh, it works great on my $20,000 Mac Pro," what are you talking about?
Right.
It's probably better.
It's real fast there. It's real fast for me. Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I think it's probably not best to have the absolute highest performance, the most performant computer, because not everybody will have that. Not that our stuff's pretty lightweight on the processor. It doesn't really have only if you're parsing a very, very, very big file, does it take any length of time. But no, for me, I actually looked back, and I have to confess I haven't actually opened Final Cut in about 6 weeks. Combination of reasons, a vacation, and then prepping for this conference, and there's a few other things. It's like I've had no project that draws me straight into Final Cut, and it's like, oops, I'm coming on the show. I bet if somebody should fire up Final Cut to see what we're talking about.
Exactly. No, that I do pre-production for shows, especially one like this. We have all these great guests, Final Cut Pro guests, and sometimes
I haven't had a chance to use all the features. Yeah.
For Final Cut?
Yeah, like Philip's talking about, like he's saying, fire up Final Cut. It's like, oh yeah, what's I haven't even used the motion tracker yet, except to test it out. I haven't used it in practice.
Right. Well,
to Philip's point, yeah.
Yeah, I keep seeing these dashed lines in my timeline, and I said, "Oh yeah, that's Dupe Detection." Of course.
Duplicate ranges.
Oh yeah, I'm sorry. Duplicate ranges. That's correct.
My keyboard just died. My keyboard just died. I'm not kidding you. The battery.
Right
Get some double A's.
Right on cue.
Yeah. They're in the other room.
You shouldn't be using your keyboard.
Do you need a keyboard, Cirina? Can I hand that?
You know what?
I got one in the package.
The new iMac came with a extended keyboard, with the
right.
The bookkeeper's digital thing on the right. I can't stand. I keep putting my hands in the wrong place, so I went back to using the old keyboard. But oh my gosh!
So I got an email this morning from an avid user. And he said, "Good morning, Richard. Your enthusiasm for Final Cut Pro is infectious. This is what I want to pose to everybody. I was trained on the Avid several years ago, but I must admit Final Cut Pro is very appealing. What would be your top Final Cut Pro features to convince old editors to choose Final Cut Pro?" That was a very nice email. I have to respond to him. Maybe he's watching this thing. So the thing that I would respond is it's not, a feature parody kind of a thing to me. It isn't like this, Avid has this feature, Premiere has this feature. Final Cut Pro is more enjoyable to use, for one thing, as a whole. And I think and then of course I'll say, well, you don't have voice isolation in Avid, that's for sure. That's one of the features. But the one feature versus this feature versus that feature, battle, that doesn't really interest me that much. What would you say, we start with Cirina, would be a feature or two you would recommend to somebody who's using Avid or Premiere why they might look at Final Cut Pro?
Well, I haven't used Avid in years, and I used to carry around the dongle that had all my settings on it. I think Final Cut works wherever you are. You can just log on and get started. And of course, you're going to add some things the way you want to, but it's just, it's universal. It's easy to use. It's user friendly. It's fast.
Do you enjoy using it?
I love it. I use it every day. I love it. I use it for things that most people don't even think about. I have an intern working with me, and she's now doing all the social media clips, bringing them into Final Cut, doing, looking at them and then exporting them and taking them into Builder to cut the clips for social media and then back into Final Cut for finishing. So we use Final Cut in all weird ways. Even if I'm doing like a magazine article,
right?
I don't know. I love it. And
what about you, Tangier?
Apple for bringing it into my life. And
absolutely,
it took me a long time to move from Final Cut 7 to 10, just because, when you learn a language, you don't want to switch. And I was really scared, and I was in the middle of a lot of things.
How long did it take you?
But I did. It took me a good over a year, maybe even longer, because I was in the middle of things. But then when I finally said, I have to make this move, and then I upgraded to 10 on everything I was working on, I had no problems.
Right.
And and the magnetic timeline never bothered me the way it did most people. I figured out a way around that. And it actually helped out. So I don't know. I'm just very grateful to have it. It keeps me working because I don't have a portable version of Avid with me all the time.
Right. So I would say, as far as features, the magnetic timeline is absolutely one key, and the way it organizes in the browser with ranges and favorites and stuff is really, really powerful. But one of the other things I would tell them is it's only $299.
Yeah.
Okay. And for 11 years, there's been no additional cost associated with Final Cut Pro. There's no reason why you can't have a second editor to try out. NLE for $299. What professional can't afford $299? I pay more than that for plugins, for third-party plugins. So that's one of the things I would say would be the $299 price point. Just get it. You don't have to use it all the time, but you're going to have it. You're going to have it available for you. That voice isolation feature is worth $100 by itself. What about you, Tangier? What would you tell somebody who, if this person came from Avid, but Premiere, Blackmagic, what would you say? Why a good reason to get to Final Cut?
Well, there's one big one, but I want to make sure I leave that to Brad.
Okay.
Okay. I'd say, just the fluidity and being staying in sync and being able to kind of preview things like filters and the live, it's just a liberating experience. The thing about Final Cut is it's just sometimes hard to, especially people who have used, whether it's Avid or Premiere, things like that, it can be challenging articulating the experience without them being on it. You can talk about the features and try to make sense of it, but they have to go beyond just doing one small project. They really need time to stick with it and kind of undo the things that they know. Because I'll just say the one word I was going to say, but I'll let Brad talk about more, is roles. I just
go ahead and talk about roles.
No, Brad, take it away. This is your part. Brad, take it away, please.
Roles is my part.
Well, tracks.
Oh, going off the tracks.
That's what he's referring to, I think. So Garrett has a good comment. Garrett says speed, stability, ease of use, magnetic timeline. I don't know how many posts do I have to be tortured with to see about Premiere crashing. I see it all the time. I don't want to see it. I don't want to see anything about Premiere, but I see it all the time. So I don't know
Richard,
about the stability. Go ahead.
Sorry. If the person that you were talking about that sent that letter, again, this is not definitive or anything like that, but if the person is listening or ends up watching, there is an article called "Why I Switched to Final Cut Pro After 25 Years of Working on Avid" on No Film School, and at the bottom of that page, you will find, by the way, our very own Brad Olsen, 3 things about it's actually, I just happened to see the link there, and it actually shows Olsen shares 3 little known facts about Final Cut Pro. But it talks about this is an Avid editor who switched to Final Cut after 25 years of using Avid on No Film School.
Was that Michael Yanovich's article?
Michael Yanovich. Yeah, he's been on here before.
His?
Yeah.
Yeah, it is. It is Michael.
Yeah, he was on here. So, he was on here for that. I think when he wrote that article, I think I had him on here. We talked about it. I like having Avid editors on here. I've had a couple. I've had Michael Yanovich has been on here, and a couple of other ones that use Avid on and off. Scott Simmonson's been on here. He uses Avid in Premiere and everything, and I enjoy talking to them. And Chris Hawking's wife, I had her on before I had Chris Hawking on, my friend from Australia, because she works in Avid on an Avid, and he was like, "You're going to be easy on her, aren't you?" I said, "Of course. There's not any animosity here. I'm curious. I'm curious how things work in the world of Avid. I'm always curious that way." What about you, Brad?
So I can't afford Avid and Premiere. And what I mean by that is I can definitely pay for the applications, but I would end up throwing my computer across the room too much, and I can't afford to buy a new computer every week.
There you go.
So I just stick with Final Cut Pro because it just helps my pocketbook a little bit better. Because I never, I enjoy using it, like you say, Richard.
Yeah.
And yeah, on the point of roles, like that obviously is some next level thinking in terms of how to organize your timeline. And I love, being able to export, say, like a graphics layer, not just, audio stems and things, but you could just export a graphics layer with an alpha channel straight out of Final Cut and select the correct roles. And that's, we talked about like HDR earlier. That's something that's really helpful when you're doing turnovers to resolve for HDR and you don't want to have to place every graphic or redo it. You could just export from Final Cut that layer and throw it on top. The thing about roles we all know is that we definitely want to be able to apply effects to them, and through roles and rules be able to have kind of a path like you would in a DAW, where you're able to bus or send things through a bus.
Right.
I think that's the one missing really hole in Final Cut as an application, is just having that last thing buttoned on. I know we talked about collaboration. That's something that would take Final Cut Pro to the next level, but being able to apply effects to sub-roles and roles would be the thing that would complete the application as it stands now.
Absolutely. Philip, what about you?
2 things. One is keyword ranges. I think keyword ranges are the absolute perfect embodiment of metadata. So there's that keyword ranges is the thing that makes Final Cut such a good organizational tool. And the other is just simply the fun and fluidity. I started with nonlinear with Media 100, and the thing, Media 100 was fun to use and really easy to get into, but the thing is it lacked the power. So Final Cut Classic was a logical next step. We could actually do something I'd long wanted, which was to put a sequence in, a nested sequence in within another sequence. But then Final Cut became less fun to use until we get to Final Cut Pro 10, which has like the fluidity of Media 100 and the power of the Final Cut world that I so enjoyed.
Right.
So yeah, that and keyword ranges are the best embodiment of metadata ever.
So, Philip, explain to an Avid editor what a keyword range is, because I'm not sure if they know, do they?
Probably not, because classically you would organize your clips. You would maybe subclip them into bins based on topic, or you may use timelines, string outs as a way of organizing material on the same topic. Final Cut doesn't use that approach because it requires you physically to have something in a bin and to move things around, and sometimes you have to have duplicate clips so you can have them in more than one bin because you might really be uncertain as to where that's going to fit into your story. Whereas with Final Cut, you simply apply a keyword, a simple word or 2 or 3 words, even the entire file, but to a range of the media, and they automatically organize all of the things that are common, all of the common keywords, organized into a keyword collection. They're sort of like a bin, but far more dynamic and far less effort and far less work.
Right. So that helps. I'm going to send him a link to this video. I'm going to answer him as well, but I'm going to say we talked about it on this video, and I'll give him a time code so he can actually see some things besides just what I was going to talk to him about. Because I really enjoy getting letters like that, emails like that. It's non-combative. It's hey, you're very enthusiastic about Final Cut Pro. Tell me some things that you would tell, an avid editor, and I really like that. So if you're watching, I will respond to your email today. So you guys all saw Audio Design Desk by now, right? What an incredible application that thing is. I mean, it's expansive beyond the scope of Final Cut Pro. When I say I want a feature in Final Cut, sometimes their third-party apps already do something like that. In this case, I don't want Audio Design Desk blended into Final Cut. It's too complex. There's too much code there that could cause problems. Keep it independent. Apple can buy them, that's fine, but keep it independent. It's very, very sophisticated audio. And one thing I liked about it is, so it can, one of the things it does, it has a bridge and it can link up Logic and Final Cut Pro playheads. It can link them up. And we had a private session one time, and I said, now tell me something. What happens when you have the scrolling timeline turned on in Logic and you link it to the Final Cut Pro playhead? I said, let's see what happens. What happens is the Final Cut Pro playhead no longer scrolls completely off the screen and disappears. It half pages. It keeps going back to the center and then playing to the end and going back to the center and playing to the end and going back. So it actually keeps the playhead on the screen if you turn on scrolling timeline and link up Logic and stuff. But it's pretty sophisticated. So let me see. We have a few more comments here. Now discovering Audio Design Desk with Final Cut Pro is like discovering Magnetic Timeline for the first time. It's a great program, absolutely is. Last week, a companion app was shown on your show, Richard, is connected to Final. Yeah, that's what we just talked about. Audio Design Desk, ADD. We did some demos on it. Audio Design Desk has a 30-day free trial. 30 days you can try it out. And they have transparent subscription models, month, day, year, different levels, or you can buy it outright. That's the best, right? Give their customers options to do what they want. I don't think Final Cut's ever going to be subscription. Do you, Philip?
No, I doubt it. I mean, it's not the model for any of Apple software themselves. But yes, I mean, we are rewriting most of our apps because they're 10 or 12 years old, and looking in each case whether the current business model is the right business model for that app.
Right.
And pretty sure we will not end up with one business model for all apps. They will vary according to how people might use them or want to use them.
Right. No, I don't mind subscriptions. I have a lot of apps that I have subscriptions to, but I don't like it when they say if you don't get subscription, we're going to turn your app off the way Adobe does. Okay. Yeah. You can't use any old project if you don't pay us a monthly fee. All your old apps and old projects, you won't be able to open them. That's what I don't like. That's not listening to your customer base, because some of your customers don't like that. If Adobe doesn't know that, I'm telling them right now. I'm sure they know it. I mean, I know they know it. I've talked to them in person before when that first came out. So happy birthday, Final Cut Pro. 11 years. When it came out, did anybody see 11 years? I didn't see 11 years. I was using 7 and 10 side by side as much as I could, finishing big projects in 7, and then I'd use 10 on anything new, short, that I could get my feet wet.
Same.
I'm glad it's still around. But in 2011, I was worried about the next year of Final Cut Pro, not just the next 10 years. So I'm glad that Apple stuck with it and that they continue to support it and they find new ways to kind of engage with the community. So,
were you surprised? Yeah. Was anybody surprised that Apple responded to that letter in official capacity?
I was.
Probably, yeah.
Yeah, I was too. I don't think that letter was from Tim Cook. I've seen some articles said it was from Tim Cook. I don't think it was signed by Tim Cook. I think it was just Apple PR, wasn't it? It was a woman that sent it out.
I'm sure it was drafted. No, I'm sure it was drafted by the Pro Apps marketing team and had to be approved by X number of levels of people in Apple marketing before it was sent out. But it was obviously, published through Peter's website and a couple other places, but I think Peter's was the main one. So there was obviously a coordinated, effort by the product marketing team for Final Cut Pro specifically.
I was a little surprised, pleasantly surprised that they responded to it, but the letter, they really didn't say a whole lot in there. I mean, they really didn't. There was nothing really groundbreaking. Okay, you're going to do training classes and certification. We already know about that. That was one of the announcements. Well, we already know. I mean, once again, pleasantly surprised. When they dropped it in 2019 or 2020, I kept saying there's no way I can see Apple not having official training for future going for Final Cut Pro. Well, here we are at Future Media Concepts. They have it back again. So
I just think out of respect to any company like Apple, I don't believe that we as consumers have the right to demand.
Yes, we do.
Request.
Yes, we do.
I don't think so. I think we can request. I think we can tell them we really don't like certain things, but it's up to the corporation to decide what they're going to do or not do. Well,
they have to listen to the customers, though.
Of course. Yeah.
Well,
but there's a way of asking without being narcissistic and demanding and unappreciative of what the team at Apple does for us on a daily basis. Yes. And there are times when I get mad at Apple too. I mean, I get mad at the dirt sometimes, but I'm always, like you said, Brad, you hope it's here for all time because we're using it and we like it. It's not perfect. None of us are perfect and it can get a lot better. Hey, it's their birthday. Let's just say
exactly.
Thank you.
No, absolutely. We absolutely want to say thank you to the Final Cut Pro team. No matter what, I'm always appreciative of the Final Cut Pro team, and they do watch this show. I know for a fact that they do. I send it to them. That's how I know. I always send them the link. So I know they watch it. Somebody watches it. What the heck? I remember when we first...
Associated with that is I'm appreciative that Wes Plate decided to go to Adobe for that period because it meant they took themselves out of the running rate in translation tools, and the translation tools have been quite kind to us. So special thank you to Wes for that. Absolutely.
Now, did you see Wes's tweet last week about Final Cut Pro?
No.
He was complaining about the waveforms not redrawing. I thought that was a good one.
Oh, yeah.
Considering the fact that somebody messaged back, well, he was in charge of that. Why didn't he fix it while he was there? Just as a joke, of course.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know if he was or not.
Either.
Yeah.
No, he was on the design team. That would be an engineering issue.
Okay.
Yeah.
Philip, that's why I love having you on the show. Because you know all this stuff. I mean, between you and Greg, you guys, all this inside stuff that, like machine learning, artificial intelligence. I know the words, but I don't know, you know what I mean? But I didn't know the definition until you help explain something like that.
Yeah, thank you. It's always fun to come on here and share what I know.
Absolutely. Do we have anything else to say besides congratulations to the Final Cut Pro team?
No,
Yeah,
I'm
thank
going
you
to
for
go
our
pack
house.
for Guatemala.
Right.
I'm going to get on Final Cut right now, edit that little video I have to finish today, and then I'm going to pack for Guatemala.
Absolutely. Well,
Yeah.
have fun there in Guatemala. Absolutely. I'll look
Thank you.
forward
Thank
to
you.
your whatever you're going to do. Now, West Plate, talking about him, he does these marathons, 200
Yeah.
miles,
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
and he does GoPro footage and iPhone footage and throws it all into Final Cut and edits it and stuff. I had him on the show after he did one. I think it was 250 miles he did over a period of days, and I told him on that show. Yeah. I told him on that show, I said, I fixed this for you because it was a mistake. He goes, what did I do? I said, you said 250 miles, and I know it was only 25 miles. It couldn't have been 250 miles. and I had a little video graphic where I crossed out 250 and put 25.
That's cute. Yeah, was that the Coconino? Something like that?
Yeah, I think it was. Yes.
I can't remember the name. Yeah, he's amazing. Hi, Wes.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. All right, everyone. Thank you for joining us in Final Cut Pro's 11th birthday. 11th birthday. 11 years they've been. And how much has it cost us since the initial purchase? Zero. Hasn't cost us any additional money. That's one of the nice features versus every month. Now, I understand, like I said, I have lots of subscriptions. I don't think Final Cut will ever go subscription. If it does, it'll still have the option to buy it outright, because that just doesn't, like Philip said, that doesn't seem like something that they would do.
It's not their
I tend to find that a lot of after learning both apps, a lot of the majority of my students end up running back to Final Cut from Resolve, but what ends up winning is that not all of them have Macs, so they like that free, being able to just go back and forth between home and school with Resolve. So that's all. That is something that does concern me sometimes. But not that I should be biased, but I am. But
well, I don't know why you don't have to be concerned. Apple announced 2.5 million users in 2018. 2.5 million, or seats they called it, in NAB 2018. So we're between 4 or 5 million now, don't you think? We're certainly above 3 million, so probably between 4 and 5 million. So there's lots of users.
I'm pretty sure that 3 million got announced by Atomos the following
You're right.
IBC.
You're right.
So,
they did. Yeah. I remember that. And I said, is this approved by Apple? Is this Apple official? Nobody answered me. You're absolutely correct.
Jeremy slipped. Tangier, let me ask you a question. Is it high school students that you're teaching?
Yes, 11th draws.
Yeah. So when I was in high school, and that was a while ago, but I couldn't afford a Mac. But within a few years in college, I was like, I'm getting rid of a PC. I'm going to Mac, and I'm going to Final Cut. So I'm sure if the students enjoy using Final Cut Pro more, they'll find a way eventually to get back onto that platform. But I agree that initial cost, you can definitely get a cheaper PC. But that also might be why it's worth showing LumaFusion and iPads off, because a way to get in.
And it's not just so much about just PC Mac. It's because a lot of them do have Macs at home as well. It's more about, at least partially about, how workflows and what people kind of get introduced to, and they develop an appetite and muscle memory for that software. That they will develop that because Resolve is free. They can jump on it and not have to pay anything like Final Cut, even though over time you don't have to pay. You only pay for it once, but they can jump on Resolve, get it, and they'll get used to it. And Final Cut, even if they do go that direction later on, it's kind of like, do I really want to do Final Cut, or do I want to stick with what I know? Which is very typical of a lot of the conversations that have been happening since Final Cut came out. Is like, it's just people are just so used to doing what is familiar, and they don't want to they don't like change. And so that's what I'm kind of getting at, is like, Final Cut, you only pay for it once, but here's Resolve for free. And students will go that way, and they develop this appetite for this track-based, very, very kind of familiar way of doing things, although still very amazing in Resolve. And that's what I mean by the concern, is they're because of the free version, they're developing that same appetite that I have to deal with professionals now, that they just don't like getting out of their comfort zone.
Tangier, I would tell every student in your class you get a grade demerit if you use tracks. So consider that before you decide what you're going to do. What were you saying, Brad?
There is a free Final Cut trial hack, which is you get it. I think they still have it 90-day free trial. They started that during the pandemic.
Yes, 90 days.
It started in 2020, and also that free 90-day trial resets every time a new version comes out.
Right. So you can get
so you download 10.6.3. If you were on 10.6.2, you get it 90 days. The 10.6.3 starts over for another 90 days. So there's a hack to that.
Yes.
Educational. It's $199, and you get five apps. $199. I mean, come on. You know, even for a student, huh?
But if they can go on to Blackmagic and download Resolve for free, that's what they're high school students. That's what
but the free version is limited. It has limitations.
Oh, they know that. Yeah, they know that. But at their level at that point, a lot of those limitations don't really apply to them yet.
Well, here's what I would say. Rather than giving them a demerit on their grade, tell them you'll boost the grade up if you see them using something that doesn't have tracks. You don't even have to mention Final Cut Pro or Apple. Say, if you don't have tracks, I'm going to give you a little boost in your grade. So
I'll admit, being a non-scientific study, it is really interesting just watching. Because the goal was to actually have them learn Resolve, Premiere, and Final Cut.
Yep.
I only managed to get 2 because the project's just took longer than intended. But it is like I said, non-scientific study. It's really interesting just watching them, where they gravitate and the reasons why they gravitate to one application or another. Generally, Resolve is not the one they want to use, but they know they can just, whether it's at home, Mac or PC, they can go home and bounce back to school and just have it. And I'm kind of cringing, like, oh gosh, Apple, I wish I just had a free version. I could just beyond 90 days. So, but they're able to, the students who choose Final Cut are able to learn the software faster, navigate the software faster, and have more time playing with their projects and finessing it and improving upon it. They tend to have more time in class than the ones in Resolve who are still trying to figure out, why is it that, in Final Cut, I have all the features all the time. Why is it in Resolve? Yes, it's free and it's amazing, but I only get some of the features on the cut page. And if I want the rest of the features, I have to go to the edit page. And it's, they're kind of, it's just more involved. So yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah.
So we got a comment. Bradley always has the best shirts ever. Bradley hasn't changed his shirt in 5 years. It's the same shirt every time.
I have the shark one.
Oh, okay.
I have a couple.
No, I know you do. I have one. I have one as well.
But
all right, everyone.
In the end, I do think that that Apple. And I agree. Great celebration. Happy birthday. I do still feel to this day that Apple has created something really special.
They have.
And
look at us.
Despite that, Adobe comes out with their updates, and Resolve is constantly coming out with updates. There's nothing that has compelled me to not even the depth map feature, although that's really amazing.
Yes, it is.
There's nothing that just liberates me and allows me to work the way that Final Cut does. There just still is nothing that does.
It's enjoyable. I enjoy it more than any other of the other NLEs, and I've tried all the other 3. And I like Blackmagic a lot, and I like LumaFusion a lot. Those are my backups. Happy birthday, Final Cut Pro, and the Final Cut Pro team.
Birthday.
And we're going to get out of here. We're almost at 2 hours. I have a dinner engagement. I have a dinner engagement to get to. So
I'm going to get going.
Bye, Philip. Bye,
Thanks.
Brad. Bye, Tangier. Bye, Richard.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye,
Talk to you later.